Desperate, I went to the capital to urge my fiancé to honor our marriage agreement. Lin Yu always put it off, saying, "Let's talk about it next year," making me wait for 3 years. But if a girl isn't married by 16, she has to pay a poll tax. I struggled to make ends meet, but the tax kept getting heavier each year. In the 4th year, the bailiff asked me, "Miss, you've been paying taxes every year. This year it's gone up. Will you still pay?" I said, "I'm not submitting it." The official media made a stroke of the pen and randomly arranged a marriage for me. Later, Lin Yu came to my door with red eyes and questioned me, "Mr. Shen, how could you marry your student's fiancé?" Before Lin Yu left, the attendants beside him specifically came to ask me, "Miss Su, have you managed to scrape together this year's tax silver? If it's really tough, we can all chip in." The attendant wrung his hands, speaking earnestly. "Next year," young master said. "He'll definitely marry you next year." I patted the half-empty purse at my waist. It did contain silver, but far from enough to pay this year's poll tax. I've been hearing these words from him for 3 years. 3 years ago, my father was implicated in officialdom, his family property was confiscated, and he didn't survive that winter. Before he breathed his last, he wrote to the Lin family, asking Lin Yu to come and marry me as soon as possible. I waited and waited, mourning my father. But the Lin family's bridal sedan chair never arrived. In the end, I took the marriage certificate myself and traveled all the way to the capital after much hardship. The snow was heavy, and my hands and feet were numb with cold. I had just caught sight of Lin Yu when the girl in yellow beside him turned deathly pale, burst into tears, and ran away. The girl was extremely beautiful, with painted eyebrows and eyes, and an air of nobility about her. Not many days later, the girl hastily became engaged to someone. I think I did something bad, but if he already has a girl he admires, why doesn't he break off the engagement with me? Break off the engagement, he can still win the girl in yellow back. It won't delay anything. But before I could finish speaking, Lin Yu smiled faintly. "No need, you are my fiancé. It is only natural that I honor my promise." At that moment, I was even a little happy. I asked him when he would marry me. He glanced at me, the smile on his lips, his tone gentle, but the words he spoke were a little harsh. "Next year, perhaps. Your father has just passed away, and you're already thinking about getting married. Aren't you afraid of bad luck? A woman who isn't married by 16 has to pay a poll tax." That year, I gritted my teeth and paid my own poll tax. The following autumn, I asked him again and again, until he finally lost his patience. "Aren't you annoying? All you ever talk about is marriage. Is all you ever think about men, fed and warm, thinking about lust? How disgusting." Feeling deeply humiliated, I wiped my eyes, stubbornly holding back the tears, refusing to show weakness. Lin Yu pursed his lips, as if feeling he had spoken excessively, and then joked with a smile, crying, "I was just kidding. My mother said that I'm inauspicious this year, so it's not advisable to get married next year. I promise I'll marry you next year." I stood there awkwardly, embarrassed to say, "I'm almost out of money. If you can't pay the tax, the government will arbitrarily assign you a marriage, tying the rest of your life to someone you've never met." But the words reached my lips, and I swallowed them back down. "Then let's wait a bit longer." Before my father passed away, he told me that as I was all alone, I should be tolerant in everything. But these days are truly unbearable. This year, the poll tax has increased by 50%. The tax collector wore a fierce expression, his face a mask of menace. "You remain unmarried year after year. As you get older, naturally the price will increase." Later I found out that Lin Yu had bribed the tax collector to deliberately raise my price. The remaining silver, he turned around and rewarded the singing girl, laughing mischievously. "My bankrupt family member is rewarding you. I'll reward you with wine." The singer giggled incessantly. A group of young masters roared with laughter. "Young master, you really have a way with women. Another girl is willing to wait for you heart and soul." Lin Yu swirled his wine glass. his tone indifferent and sarcastic. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have married in a fit of pique. I want to let her know the meaning of do not impose on others what you yourself do not desire. She wouldn't let me have my way, so she should taste this bitterness herself. Let's drag it on. The more she wants to marry, the less I'll marry her, anyway. She's willing to wait for me. He instructed his attendants to raise the tax silver by 30% next year. His group of friends laughed again. I'm afraid they'll have to sell themselves to scrape together the tax silver. Who is young master you? If that family of paupers wants to marry into the family, if they don't succeed once, they can just sell themselves a few more times. The sound of string and bamboo instruments rose. The gentle breeze was enticing, and the whirling dance of the singing girls was dazzling. Lin Yu was already drunk and collapsed on the Persian carpet. I didn't say a word, meticulously clipping the bits of silver. A maid who knew me well couldn't bear it and came to comfort me. Sister Yutang, look, not only do you have to pay the poll tax, but our young master does too. It shows he's waiting for you. He's just young and playful. Wait a little longer. I hummed in acknowledgement. The Lin family is rich and powerful, and casually rewarding servants with a few taels of gold and silver. How would they know the difficulty of me saving money? I don't have a monthly allowance in the Lin residence. Without money, I have to fend for myself, writing poems and painting for the elegant young ladies in the capital, and putting them in bookstores for consignment, selling my talent cheaply, and he can bribe the tax officials with a casual remark, so I have to stay up countless more nights, living under someone else's roof. I need to be appropriately humble. But my father also told me that things shouldn't exceed 3 times. If it becomes unbearable, there's no need to endure it any longer. This year, I don't want to wait any longer. 2. I clutch the silver and head to the Yamen. The tax official asks, "It's you again?" The tax silver has increased this year. Will the girls still pay? I'm not paying. Fine. The tax official handed my name card to the matchmaker, who languidly opened the ledger and casually ticked it with a red pen. He'll do. All right, let's go. I don't even know my future husband's name. My life has been decided just like that. Back at the Lin residence, Lin Yu was leaning against the corridor. Seeing me return, he raised an eyebrow and asked, "Has the tax silver been handed over?" I lowered my eyes and nodded, telling a lie. He was relieved and turned to direct the servants to load the chests onto the carriage. My jade incense burner, cloud brocade pillow, and that set of purple clay tea set. Bring them all. Be careful, don't break anything. You won't be able to pay it off even if you sell yourself. A room full of servants, all dark and crowded, surrounded him, afraid he would get cold or hungry on his outing. In the midst of the chaos, he came over and reached out to pat my head, and I instinctively dodged. He withdrew his hand, curved his lips, and asked with a smile, "What do you want? I'll bring it back for you when I go out." He's always like this, offering a piece of candy when my heart is completely cold, steadying me. I'm just useless. Every time, I tell myself, break off the engagement, don't wait anymore. But as long as he gives me a smile, I'll think, what if it really is next year, every time? I ended up getting tricked. I stared blankly at the lotus flowers beside me, and said perfunctorily, "A purse, maybe. Don't order expensive things. Young master has plenty of money. No need." "Okay." Lin Yu waved his folding fan, gesturing and bossing around a group of servants, while I had already turned to walk towards the west wing. 3. This courtyard was in the most remote corner of the Lin mansion, so usually even servants rarely came here. A locked moon gate separated this place from the main courtyard, and I was only called to show my face in the main courtyard during festivals. Once the door was closed, it was as if this place was isolated from the Lin mansion, with only a small door connecting to the east alley of the Lin mansion. The courtyard was eerily quiet, but there was one advantage: no one would notice when the officials came to pick me up. There was no wedding procession, no bridal sedan. only a wrinkled Wang matchmaker urging me at the side door with the marriage certificate in hand. I frowned. Those who can't afford the poll tax and have no money to marry a wife are truly poor. But, never mind, even if I have no fields or land, I can earn some money by showing off my literary talent. It won't be worse than now. Madame Wang waved her handkerchief. Today is supposed to be your wedding day. Why aren't you even wearing a wedding dress? I clenched my bundle and remained silent. In fact, before my father passed away, he had prepared a dowry for me, a wedding dress, embroidered shoes, jade bracelets, and some family savings, also that I wouldn't be too poor when I married into the family. But in the first year, Lin Yu refused to marry me, and the tax money was urgently needed, so I had to pawn the wedding dress. Who knew that the tax money would become heavier year by year? The embroidered shoes were pawned, and the jewelry was pawned. But I still didn't wait for the day he would marry me. All I have left in the world are a few old clothes. Seeing my pale face, Madame Wang quickly plastered on a smile and smoothed things over. It's all right, you can still live without a wedding dress. You look like a down-to-earth person, and life is for yourself, not for others. Let's get going. The sooner we finish, the sooner we'll both be at ease. Passing by the Lin Manor gate, I ran into Lin Yu's carriage heading out. Leaning against the soft pillows, fanning himself with a folding fan, he truly cut a dashing figure. I, clutching my bundle, headed north, while he, sitting steadily in his grand carriage, headed south. As we passed each other, neither of us gave the other more than a glance. Outside the city gate, Madame Wang frowned at the marriage certificate. Where exactly does this Shen Shu live? I took the marriage certificate and saw that the address was actually near the Shuyuan Academy, in the north of the city. That academy was where Lin Yu had studied before. The place was secluded. I led Madame Wang, turning left and right between the field ridges, and finally arrived at the place at the end of a path. 4. The small courtyard was covered with green vines, the bamboo fence was sparse, and a stone table was placed under the locust tree with pages of a book turning in the breeze. I looked and looked again over the fence, and half of my worry was relieved. Although poor, the stone mortar was polished brightly, and the little donkey tied under the locust tree had a sleek and glossy coat. This was a family that lived properly. Madame Wang craned her neck and shouted, "Shen Shu, Mr. Shen." My heart skipped a beat. He's a teacher. Please don't let it be a hoary old pedant. With a creak, the wooden door opened, and a young man in grey, holding a book, walked out. When our eyes met, we were both stunned. It was actually Lin Yu's former academy teacher. This is, Shen Shu saw me and was clearly taken aback, a subtle ripple flashing across his usually composed face. Frowning, his voice remained gentle. How could it be her? This won't do. She is my student's fiancée. There must be some misunderstanding. Madame Wang just brought me here, washing her hands of everything else. She slapped the marriage certificate on the stone table and said, "The government arranged this marriage. How can it be wrong? Congratulations, Mr. Shen." Having said that, she sashayed away, leaving only Shen Shu and me staring at each other in the small bamboo-fenced courtyard. I awkwardly clutched my bundle, which contained only 2 sets of old clothes and a worn-out brush, and after a long while, softly called out, "Mr. Shen." Shen Shu looked embarrassed, his brow furrowed. This is really not proper etiquette. I will go to the government office tomorrow to explain. He really dislikes me. If I am returned to the government, I don't know who I'll be assigned to next. I stared down at the tips of my shoes, my eyes stinging. I don't have the money to pay the taxes. I admit I'm being a little despicable. Mr. Shen is a very kind-hearted person. I remember 3 years ago, when Lin Yu went to study at the academy. I specially made braised noodles to send to the academy in the dead of winter to leave a good impression on him. The thick oil sealed the soup, and it was still scalding hot when it arrived at the academy. It rained that day, and I huddled under the eaves, shivering. Shen Shu saw me and made an exception. letting me in to take shelter from the rain. Who knew Lin Yu's face would darken the moment she saw me? Who told you to come? The surrounding students whispered, all scrutinizing me, exchanging glances, seemingly surprised that he had such a shabby fiancé. So, I had embarrassed him. The attendants had prepared food early, including crab roe meatballs and crystal cakes, all exquisitely made. He refused to eat until the noodles were soggy. I was about to throw it away, but Shun Shu said it was wrong to waste food. He placed 3 coins on the stone steps, saying it was as if he bought it, giving me a way out. Lin Yu didn't study properly and was always punished by the teacher to copy texts. The pampered young master was a handful, and he was foisted off on me. After copying so much, even Shun Shu couldn't bear to watch. Looking at the faint dark circles under my eyes, he said, "The handwriting is delicate and neat. You copied it for him, didn't you? If he doesn't learn himself and has someone write for him, what's the point? Forget it. I won't punish him anymore in the future." As the sun began to set, I stole a glance at Shun Shu. His gaze lingered on me for a moment. A complicated look flashed in his eyes, and finally, he let out a soft sigh, pointing to the small house to the east. "Forget it. You can stay there for now." My heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally fell. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Thank you, sir." 5. Lin Yu leaned against the railing, listening to music. His friends, knowing that his fiancée had once again paid a year's poll tax out of her own pocket, were filled with envy amidst the clinking glasses. Someone asked, "Aren't you afraid she won't pay the tax and just marry someone offhandedly?" Lin Yu's lips curved into a smile as he casually played with the double-fish jade pendant at his waist. Would she dare? A daughter of a fallen family who can't even afford decent jewelry now. Could she find a better match? Lin Yutang is still eagerly waiting for him to come home. When Lin Yu goes out to meet friends, he is always generous, spending thousands of gold coins on painted boats for music one day and dancing with foreign dancers the next. This money is enough to pay decades of poll tax. Some people don't understand why Lin Yu, who is wealthy, is so stingy as to not pay her taxes. The attendant squatted outside the cabin, peeling lotus seeds, and couldn't help but nod in agreement. Speaking of this, the young master, who fancied himself insightful, analyzed the situation with great eloquence. "What do you know? People like her, the poorer they are, the more they haggle over gains and losses. If they don't save money themselves, how will they know how hard it is to earn? If she marries me one day and really lives a good life, she'll only become arrogant. Don't be fooled by how much she's investing now. She's trying to make a big profit with a small stake. Such cunning schemes can't deceive me." Everyone who heard it deeply felt that young Master Lin was wise and brilliant, with unique insights. 6. I was so tired that day that I fell into bed and slept like a log. When I woke up the next day, the room was quiet, and Shin Shu was long gone. I went out to look for him, and the neighboring Queen Yangzi greeted me, and we became familiar with each other in just a few words. "Isn't he your distant cousin?" Considering the differences between men and women, it's natural to avoid suspicion. It's good for him to move to the academy. I couldn't help but pout. This person is truly pedantic and heartless. It makes me seem like a villain occupying his house, forcing him to go to the academy. Unhappy as I am, I've still made my plans. I'll write articles to save some money. If he really doesn't want to marry me, I'll move out when I've saved enough tax money. Since I'm staying at his place, I should help tidy up a bit and not let the furniture get dusty. While tidying up, I found a trunk filled with books stacked neatly. On top was a collection of strange tales and records. The pages were yellowed, and the corners were curled, indicating frequent use. I opened it as if possessed, and couldn't stop reading once I started, forgetting about the passage of time. What with vengeful ghosts returning to life, painted skin female demons, foxes repaying kindness. It was nothing like the kind of book a proper teacher should read. Perhaps because I had read too many strange tales during the day, A fox spirit entered my dream that night. The fox spirit gracefully bowed to me, saying she had come to repay my kindness, and then with a wave of her wide sleeves, a puff of green smoke swept through, and the house instantly became spotless. The rice jar overflowed, and even the corners were piled high with grain and oil. I woke up in the early morning and couldn't help but laugh, feeling inexplicably lighter. I got up to fetch water, only to be horrified to find the water tank full. But I clearly remember using half of it during the day. Did I remember it wrong? For several days in a row, more and more strange things happened. Every morning, the water tank was always full. Yesterday, the rice jar was almost empty, but the next day it was full again. I made scallion pancakes with eggs, and this morning there were 7 or 8 fresh ones lying in the basket. Could there really be a fox spirit? That night I didn't dare to sleep soundly. I tiptoed up at midnight, only to find that I was still a step late. I mustered my courage and shouted outwards. "Which divine being is it? Please show yourself so this humble woman can pay her respects." Only the rustling of the mountain wind and the sparseness of the night answered me. Blame me for sleeping too soundly, not willing to give up. The next night I huddled in my quilt, stubbornly refusing to close my eyes, until midnight. A rustling sound came, and the moonlight through the window paper outlined a slender figure, bending over to pour rice into the rice jar, and gently placing eggs and green vegetables next to the stove. Not a fox spirit at all, but Shun Shu, who should have been living in the academy. A mixture of emotions welled up within me. I've been here for a month, and I've never been hungry or thirsty. I turned around to rummage through the depths of the closet, and the few ingots of silver I had hidden away had actually increased after counting them again and again, in the 3 years I was in the Lin family. Lin, you never asked me if I was hungry or cold, or if I had enough money to spend, but Shun Shu took care of me with meticulous attention to detail. This teacher isn't as cold as he appears on the surface either. 7. The next morning, I stared blankly at the full jar of new rice and vegetables for a while, but finally rolled up my sleeves and made 2 golden, glistening scallion pancakes. He who eats a man's food must obey him. He who takes a man's gift must be lenient to him. I'm not some shameless girl who eats for free. I packed the pancakes and hurried to the academy. The academy students were reading aloud, their voices carrying out. I stood outside the courtyard under the sycamore tree, and peered inside through the half-open window. How come I didn't realize it before, Mr. Shun is not bad looking either. Shun Shu stood on the stage, dressed in a faded blue gown, which made him look slender and upright, unlike Lin Yu's arrogant handsomeness. Shun Shu's eyebrows and eyes were gentle and indifferent, like the misty rain of Jiangnan, only now, his eyes are faintly blue-black, probably because he didn't rest well last night after running back and forth, sought after day and night, pausing slightly as he read this. Shun Shu inadvertently raised his eyes, meeting mine through the window as I stood beneath the tree. When class ended, he hastily told the students to study and hurried out, his voice low. "What are you doing here?" I handed over the warm oil paper package, freshly baked flatbread. "You don't have to bring me food specially. The academy has a kitchen, and I can cook for myself. Thank you for the rice and vegetables, sir. I can't eat that much alone." My secret was exposed, and Shun Shu was momentarily speechless. Shun Shu hastily ate a few mouthfuls at the stone table under the tree, then handed back the food box, pursing his lips. "You should leave quickly. If someone sees you, it won't be good for your reputation. How will you get married in the future?" These words were like a thin needle, gently pricking her heart. He really doesn't want to marry me, avoiding suspicion at every turn, afraid of getting involved with me. I lowered my head, looking at our elongated shadows on the bluestone slabs. Understood. Turning to leave, my steps felt inexplicably heavy. Back home, I stared at my blurred reflection in the basin, trying hard to force a smile. My phoenix eyes are slightly upturned, indeed less proper-looking than round almond eyes. Lin Yu once said I looked like a vixen, thinking only of marrying a man all day long. A bookish man as honest and upright as Shen Shu would probably only like someone like Miss Wanna. 8. I counted the few remaining bits of silver I had over and over, but still couldn't scrape together enough for a year's tax. Making money by writing poetry and painting was too slow, and just as I was worrying, I suddenly remembered Shen Shu's collection of strange tales. An idea struck me. Perhaps I could write some supernatural stories that the common people would enjoy and sell them to tea houses and bookstores. No sooner said than done. I shut myself away for 3 days and wrote several episodes of the Fox's repayment story. When I found the bookstore in the city, the owner was initially indifferent, but after patiently reading it, he immediately counted out 50 copper coins and pushed them over, still with lingering interest, saying, "Girl, hurry up and write. I'll sell this first half. If it sells well, we can cooperate on the rest." The first thing I did after receiving the money was to go to the market. I need to fill the rice jar and vegetable basket to the brim. Let's see how Shen Shu secretly delivers food in the middle of the night now. But in the middle of the night, Shen Shu still came back without fail. With no place to put the rice and flour, he would bring a bundle of firewood, sometimes sweep the yard, sometimes grind cornmeal, always with endless work to do. When I got up and opened the door in the morning, there was a soft clanging sound under my feet. A bronze mirror lay on the ground. Yesterday was a box of rouge. I bent down to pick it up, unable to describe the feeling. Other than not really paying attention to me, he was pretty good to me. The storybook sold unexpectedly well, and in less than a month, I had saved enough to pay the taxes. On this mid-autumn day, I made mooncakes and cooked dishes early in the morning, thinking, today is Mid-Autumn Festival. I'll say goodbye to Shen Shu after the festival, but I waited from dawn until the sun was setting in the west. And he still didn't come back. I stared at the luggage I had packed, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Su Yutang, see how annoying you are. You've made him so angry that he doesn't dare to come home. It's no fun celebrating the festival alone. So I packed my bags and simply went to the Yamen. I left in a hurry, forgetting it was the Mid-Autumn Festival. There was no one at the government office except for an old Yamen runner. I hesitated for a long time before asking. I'm asking for a friend. If the taxes are paid retroactively, can the arranged marriage be cancelled? The runner flipped through the register and asked for my name, saying strangely, "Isn't this marriage a good match? Why cancel it? Mr. Shin doesn't seem to like my friend very much. How could that be?" The Yamen runner wore a strange expression. When Mr. Shin first heard that the girl was paying the unmarried tax instead of getting married, he came over early to stuff silver into the clerk's hands, begging him that if she couldn't pay the tax and was assigned a marriage by the government, he must put his and the girl's names together. The constable clicked his tongue and shook his head, a knowing smile on his face. These scholars, they're always going on about romance and moonlight. If he's not married, he'll have to pay the tax, plus a 30% surcharge. Tell your friend to think carefully. I stood there, stunned. The constable's words echoed in my mind like a thunderclap. So, it wasn't the government arbitrarily assigning marriages, not a coincidence, not that he was soft-hearted and reluctantly took her in. He had planned it all along, greasing the wheels early on. 8. I almost ran back to the small courtyard, my heart pounding, unable to say whether it was anger or something else. Dusk gathers, the rosy light fades. Shen Shu was standing in the courtyard, holding a rabbit lantern in his hand, forcing a bitter smile at the empty yard. "Mr. Shen," I said from behind him. Shen Shu froze for a moment, his whole body stiffened, and he turned around slowly, his eyes looking over with a deep gaze, his voice lower than usual. I thought you were gone." I poured out everything I had heard at the Yamen. He was uncharacteristically flustered, somewhat incoherent. It was my lack of consideration. Don't misunderstand, I have no other intentions. He only spoke for a long time. but couldn't explain clearly. A rare look of embarrassment appeared between his usually calm eyebrows. I pressed him repeatedly before he told me something I didn't know. He said that my father was once his teacher, and despite him being too poor to pay tuition, he still taught him everything he knew. When I was down on my luck and went to the academy in the capital, Lin Yu recognized me at first glance. He also wanted to help me, but I had a fiancé, so it wasn't appropriate for him to intervene, silently watching. Jiangju Luoxia Academy. You were 6 years old then. The teacher practiced boxing in the academy every morning, and you would sit on the side. Do you remember? I was stunned, but that was indeed the case. At that time, everyone in the school called me junior sister. I would call everyone senior brother or senior sister upon meeting them. My late master's kindness to me was as heavy as a mountain. I will never forget it and always want to repay it, I was thinking. If our teacher knew you were being arbitrarily betrothed and not living well, how heartbroken would they be in the afterlife? You stay here for now. If you meet a good man in the future, I will act as your brother and see you off when you marry. I listened in a daze. So it turned out that the fox had come to repay my kindness. But I also thought of the little things that had happened recently, the tireless late-night food deliveries, the bronze mirror and rouge at the door. It really was a bit much. I felt inexplicably lost. Just like that, I pressed, my voice carrying an expectation I hadn't even noticed, my palms slightly sweaty. In stories, foxes repaying kindness always offer themselves in marriage. I stared at him intently. This is the last chance. If he doesn't answer well, 3 strikes and he's out. I won't hold him back. I've cornered Shen Shu. After a moment of silence, he finally raised his eyes to meet mine, his ears slightly flushed, but he was also very straightforward. It's not entirely. At first, it was to repay my teacher's kindness, but now, I have my own selfish motives. He's shy and dared not continue, but in his eyes, I saw that hidden affection, like a gentle rain, silently permeating, quietly seeping through, converging into a vast ocean. My face flushed red. And I quickly changed the subject, pointing at the lantern and asking, "What is this?" "For you, a mid-autumn festival gift." Shen Shu seemed relieved, his fingertips trembling slightly as he handed over the lantern. "I remember when you were little, you raised rabbits. I wonder if you still like them now." It's too hard to get an honest person to say anything. I suddenly stepped forward and gently held his hand as I took the lantern. I'm so bold, I even intently observed his reaction. Shen Shu's fingers trembled, and just when I thought he was about to bring out that set of pedantic rules about men and women not touching hands, he grasped my hand instead. His hands were so hot, the heat traveled along the sleeves to my face, making it feel like it was burning. He asked in a low voice, even more subdued than usual, "Next year, can we still spend Mid-Autumn Festival together?" The lanterns flickered on and off. I looked at the shadows on the ground, close together, and nodded lightly. Yeah, the evening breeze brushed through the locust trees, the leaves rustling. What sweet nothings were the autumn moon and fallen leaves whispering to each other. 9. The day Lin Yu returned to the city, the autumn light was just right. Passing the 10-mile pavilion, he ran into a former classmate who said that their former teacher, Mr. Shun, was getting married, and asked if he wanted to go with them to give gifts. Mr. Shun, oh, it's him, Lin Yu chuckled. Full of disdain, a poor scholar who can't even pass the imperial examination, is he worthy to be called teacher? If he hadn't been annoyed by Su Yutong back then, how would he have gone to that broken academy to seek peace? Therefore, he is not worthy of this title of teacher. He took a sip of wine and continued to mock. With his meager salary, can he even afford to marry a wife? I heard it wasn't a betrothal, but a marriage assigned by the government. Neither of them could afford the poll tax, so they were lumped together. What kind of good daughter could come from a family that can't even afford the poll tax? Most likely some twisted melon or cracked dates, or some vulgar woman that no one could marry off. And the government foisted her off on him like getting rid of baggage, a poor wretch and an ugly thing. Truly a match made in heaven. Not going. For some reason, he suddenly thought of Suyutang, that remote academy. She diligently followed him there, bringing hot soup in winter, cool fans in summer, and even taking his place to copy lines as punishment at night. It's a bit shabby and dilapidated, but it can be considered conscientious. Lin Yu asked his attendant, "How many years of poll tax has Su Yutong paid?" Replying to you, "Young master, including this year, it's been 4 years, forget it, let's not have her pay next year." He'll reluctantly marry her then, as he approached the Lin residence. He remembered that he hadn't bought the gift he promised Su Yutong. He tossed a few coins to his attendant. "Go, buy a purse." Thinking for a moment, he added a few more coins. "Get the most fashionable design, with gold thread embroidery." He thought, this is the first time the young master has tried to please a woman. When Su Yutong sees it, who knows how happy she will be. The first thing Lin Yu did upon returning to the residence was to head towards the west courtyard. The moment he pushed the door open, he was stunned. The courtyard was desolate, and the window lattices were covered in thick dust, clearly indicating that no one had lived there for a long time. For some reason, he felt a little panicked. Su Yutong wouldn't have left, would she? This thought arose, but was immediately rejected by him. Impossible, she just paid the ding tax, and now she can't wait for him to come back and marry her. How could she leave? Lin Yu paced back and forth, becoming more and more upset. Su Yutang, always showing her face in public, either copying books at the bookstore or selling paintings and calligraphy. She can't just stay quietly at home like a lady from a respectable family. "Where did you go this time?" He turned back to the main courtyard, full of bluster. "Where is Su Yutong?" The butler immediately greeted him with a smile. "I was just about to tell you the good news, young master. Miss Su couldn't pay her tax silver some time ago and has been forcibly married by the government. She's married now, so she won't have a chance to pester the young master anymore." Hearing this, Lin Yu was severely shaken. "What did you say? Who told you to act on your own authority? She needed money. Couldn't you have taken it from the accounts? You just stood by and watched the official matchmaker take her away." Lin Yu's eyes were about to burst. The housekeeper was stunned by the yelling, and after a long while, he asked in confusion, "Didn't young Master Ku always dislike Miss Su? He's been stringing her along, hoping she'd give up. Didn't you order that Miss Su isn't a member of the Su family until she marries in, and that she's not allowed to use any of the Su family's money? Isn't that right?" "When did I ever?" He suddenly choked. He looked around blankly at the surrounding servants. Everyone looked at each other, as if not understanding why he was angry. All along, everyone's attitude towards him has been obvious. He hates Su Yutang and has delayed marrying her year after year. Everyone knows that their young master is mischievous and is deceiving Su Yutang. Only that silly girl believed him again and again. The housekeeper knew his temper was unpredictable and wondered what trick his young master was up to now, so he quietly shrank back half a step. Wishing he could hide himself in the shadows of the corridor pillars, Lin Yu's gaze swept across a series of questioning faces. It dawned on him how obvious his disdain for Su Yutong had been all these years, so obvious that everyone thought he wouldn't marry her, but he had wanted to marry her for a long time. He was just joking. 10. Since the day they talked it out. Shun Shu had moved back to the small courtyard. He lives in the east wing, and I live in the west wing, separated by a small courtyard, still minding our own business. I watched his figure as he left to teach in the morning, and couldn't help but worry, are we supposed to be husband and wife? How can this person be more reserved than a young woman? Could it be that I have to take the initiative? That's not entirely out of the question. I put down my brush, washed my hands, mixed the dough, chopped the scallions, and baked the pancakes until they were golden brown and crispy on both sides. Arriving at the academy just in time for noon, Shen Shujing was seeing his students off when he saw me. His steps paused almost imperceptibly, and he coughed lightly. I am wearing a married woman's hairstyle. Several mischievous students crowded around, winking and making faces. Teacher, who is this sister? Teacher, your face is so red. Older students passed by, seriously guessing. Is that the teacher's wife delivering food to him? My cheeks flushed from the children's teasing, so I rummaged under the lunchbox and took out the milk candies, handing them out one by one as they cheerfully called me teacher's wife. Shunshu was embarrassed, but he didn't deny it, putting on a stern face. Barely maintaining the seriousness of a teacher, he lightly tapped the child's head with his book. You're being cheeky. If you keep talking, you'll be copying the Book of Rights. Go home and eat quickly. The students giggled and ran off, accidentally bumping into someone who shouldn't be here. Brocade robes and golden shoes. It turned out to be Lin Yu. His face was ashen as he stared at me, filled with resentment and bitterness. I suppressed my smile and looked at him calmly. Young Master Lin, are you here to attend school? I'm afraid you're too old. Lin Yu suddenly pointed at Shunshu, his words laced with malice. Mr. Shun, how could you marry your student's fiancé? Do you even know the meaning of propriety, justice, integrity, and honor? Yu Tang, come here, come home with me, so you don't end up with a reputation for being frivolous like him. He was uncharacteristically subdued with me, but the words he spoke were still so harsh. I looked at Lin Yu's face, twisted with anger, and felt both annoyed and amused. Lin Yu was always high and mighty, mocking and sneering when he was happy, trampling and verbally abusing people when he was unhappy, as if everyone deserved to be at his feet. I, with my pure heart and soft nature, always accepting and submitting, not allowed to have a temper. Lin Yu, our engagement doesn't count anymore. If you don't marry me, it's only reasonable for the government to assign me a spouse. If you like, you can even call me Shimu, wife of one's teacher. He looked like he was about to be infuriated by me. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he almost roared. I don't accept it. You are clearly my fiancé. I really don't understand. He kept delaying marrying me, but now he's blaming me for marrying someone else. What exactly does he want? Am I, Su Yutang, destined to fulfill his selfish possessiveness, waiting humbly in the same spot, allowing him to disrespect me? There are too many people coming and going in front of the academy. It's not a place to talk. I took a deep breath and looked at Shunshu. I want to say a few words to him. He smiled gently and tilted his head slightly. Okay, go ahead. 11. Behind the academy was a lotus pond. The lotus stems were half withered, only a few branches remained, scattered and standing. Do you still remember this place? Lin Yu looked blank, avoided the question, and seemed impatient with me, exasperatedly saying, didn't I say I'd marry you next year? Oh, so he doesn't remember. Trivial things are not worthy of being remembered by him. Back then, he refused to eat the noodles I made, so I kept changing the recipes, making fried dough sticks and pastries, all of which he loved. I didn't deliver them myself either, but indirectly gave them to his entourage. But the things I made, Lin Yu secretly dumped into this pond, and the cormorants flocked to fight over them, mocking my infatuation. He didn't eat them or say anything, causing me to waste half a year making them, only to fatten a flock of cormorants. And you still pretended to tell me it was delicious. Never mind. I smiled and didn't mention it again. Some things you can't let go of if you dwell on them. But a smile is a release. Those things that used to make you sad enough to cry, now that you think about them, they're really not that big of a deal. Seeing that I didn't speak, he softened his tone. This time it's real. I won't lie to you again. We'll get married as soon as we get back, and I won't let you pay the poll tax anymore. You haven't formally married Shunshu yet. There's still time. Look, he took out a purse, his eyes flashing with hope. The purse you said you wanted. I bought it specially. I glanced at it. It was the most ordinary style, a drop in the bucket for him. Perhaps that was true, but it no longer mattered to me. I don't want it anymore.